Hey Truth Seekers, it is Carolyn here, and I'm going to be going through the deck profile for my Sadie 1-cost deck. So as you can see, we've got all the power tokens up here because this deck came through with the idea that all of the cards, or all of the Animo, would be 1 cost. And so I somehow managed, without actually meaning to, make a deck that uses all of the colors. So we're going to go ahead and start here. And because everything only costs 1, your power pool technically only needs 4 power cards in it, because you can only activate 4 Animo at a time using Sadie. Now if we used Alex, we could have 5, but that's a whole different story. So with this, I do have 2 of the Holy Spirit here, simply because I may be trying to activate more than 1 at a time, and with the others, I really only need the 1 here, and sometimes they have a return cost, which is why I have this one here since I can't return her. And then I have a couple prayer here because prayer obviously can work as any of these except for the Holy Spirit. So it didn't make sense to put fasting in this deck simply because everything costs 1. So that is what that is for. So those are the total power cards that I run. Ta-da! Moving on, we're going to start with our Faith Animo here. I have Spark Cube because, again, he's a 1 cost, but he has this fellowship bonus because that's something we wanted to maximize in this deck, because while they might be little, they are powerful. So I use those. Next, I have Flow level 1. Excuse me. And this says, when this card's played from your hand into your small group, you may place 1 Love Animo from your discard pile into your hand. Very, very helpful. And I have 3 of her. Or him, it depends. And then I also have the level 2, since it also is a 1 cost, and it has this really nice little fellowship bonus here. So you go grab that love, you can use it, and you can put them in the same turn, getting a lot more points that way. Next, we're moving into our Hope Animo over here. So we use Glimmer. I really like this Glimmer. It's just cute. So it also gives me that fellowship bonus as well. I use Schwimmer. Not only does he have a fellowship bonus, he also has the action that I can search my deck for 1 standard power card, which is fantastic because the only thing it can't get me is that prayer, but super worthwhile, and especially if I'm going to be going and doing multiple cards at once, because he's a really good starter card to get, like with Sadie or something, because I can use him, and I can, if I have another one here, I can use him to go get that other Holy Spirit power, and I can get that fellowship bonus. So that's really nice. I have a Squibble here, also for that fellowship bonus. I also run 1 Tortosaur. He's that one that has that return cost on him. I get to search my deck for any level 1 Animo and place it directly into my small group. So I can also play him. So if my power pool is completely full, I can then kind of beat that and get around that for Animo at a time in your small group, because I can go get another one here, and that really is helpful. And then finally, we have an Aurora here. She works as a power card, but also you can just pay her cost and she's a 1 for 4. So really nice stuff here in Hope. Works really well with Sadie, especially as your beginning cards. So you always want to hopefully draw into one of those pretty quickly. The other thing that we have here is we have another, we can search for any kind of power here, but it's Faith, Hope, or Holy Spirit. So that's really helpful early game. You take out your Schwimmer, you go get your love, you pay this one, and then you can go get your something else. Really nice there. We have Bear Maid here, and this one has a fellowship bonus of 5. And then we have Tweetheart here, which is a fellowship bonus of 6. So really nice stuff here. And then new to this most recent set with Fearless stuff here, we have our own 1 cost Ultra, and this is a 1 for 5 or a 1 for 10, which is phenomenal. And cat. Hi. Scoochies. 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 Thank you. Gotta love it. All right. So we have our level 1 Ultras here, which are 1 for 10, which is awesome. Love that. And I'm so happy that I'm actually able to put some Ultras in here that do some really cool stuff. Next, moving on, we have Guppies. Guppies allows us to search our deck for a Faith or Hope Animo, It's really nice. Lily over here has an action to search for any faith, hope, or love Animo and place it to your hand. We have Strider here, which allows us to swap and be able to draw cards, which is really nice. And along with this guy, we're able to play his level 2 as well, because he's a 1 for 8. And you get to search your deck for any level 1 faith, hope, or love Animo, excluding ultras, and place it directly into your small group. So again, this one's kind of that one of those ones we can get around that 4. I have been able to play up to 6 in a single turn. It's really cool. It's just really cool. And along with that, we have yet another 1-cost ultra. He is a 1 for 10 without having to have that fellowship bonus. And this card takes up 2 spaces in your small group and may not be activated in the same turn which it was added to your small group. So he kind of blocks a few things up, but with Sadie, with some of the other cards, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of difference if you play him in the right way. So really like this one. Moving on to our universals here, we've got Bibsy, my favorite little buddy here. He's the only ones that we have for universal right now. And he says when this card is played from your hand into your small group, you may draw 1 card for each Animo in your small group besides this one. So he also has that draw power because this deck really lacks a lot of draw power. But Sadie really makes up for a lot of that, along with some of these other cards that can do stuff during your action phase and things like that. So to make up for that fact that we lose a lot of draw power, you lose a lot of power in general, we have quite a few story cards here. So we use the Rich Fool. You get to draw the bottom 3 cards of your deck. We use Ascension just in case I need one of those level 2s and I've already used my level 1s. This one's really helpful because I can basically skip directly to a level 2 with this one. I have Sandcastle here. I get to search for an Ultra or a Mega because we do have some Megas in here because we really want to slow down our opponent, simply because this deck doesn't have as a lot of the overpowering power that the other Animo do in our other decks. So this one can either help me get ahead or can help me slow them down, which also helps me get ahead. I also have Giant Killer here. Giant Killer allows me to search my deck for a Mega Cine and reveal it to my opponent, or if I'm facing a Mega Cine, return it to the owners. Shuffle it back into their deck. So this is really helpful if they pull out, like a Toll Crow or something that's a Mega. It's like, oh, this is going to take a lot of Animo and I'm going to invest a lot into trying to defeat this. I can just pull this guy out. So really nice. And along that same vein, I have Paused Maws to prevent my opponent from playing a Cine on me. Because again, this deck is small, but it is mighty when played in the right way. Moving on from story cards, we have our equipment cards here. So this one is +3 to any Holy Spirit Animo, which is nice. Now, this one, technically, I debated on this card because I felt like it kind of went against my 1 cost. But this card in itself almost acts as if it's another Animo. So when you attach it to something, it does increase its power cost by 1, but it gives it +5, which is essentially the same cost as a lot of these 1-cost Animo, and it doesn't take up an extra space within my small group. So that just felt like a really smart decision, even though I do feel it's almost cheating in a way, but it's not an Animo, so it doesn't technically count against the 1 cost for the Animo rule. And then finally, we have Paul's Chains. It's a good way to get a card out of your small group if you really need to, but it also allows me to search because there are some Cines out there that could really hurt this deck by just stopping my roll completely. This and Sadie are really helpful to try and get around those things. And then finally, we have our Cines. So I was very particular with the Cines that I put in this deck, simply because, again, small but mighty, I really need to help control my opponent's movements. So this guy, I can actually reveal him from my discard pile. So if I really need to be drawing cards, and they already have a Cine on them at the moment, but I really need to have one in my hand, I can't keep it in my hand, I can put it in my discard and use it as if it is from my hand at some point later on in the game. I have Zapper King, so my opponent may not play any level 1 Animo from their hand into their small group the next turn, which really is helpful against a lot of the decks that Nathaniel likes to play. It slows him down for at least a turn, which gives me a chance to either catch up or get ahead. I have Wolf here, which I can either use as a Cine or I can use it to essentially draw a card. Really helpful to have that option, so I really like that. Waspets here gets rid of a card completely. I can search their discard pile, select one, and it can't return for the duration of the game. So this is really helpful if there's a card in your opponent's discard that they've been using and recycling somehow, like a Flow Ultra or something like that. This is really helpful to be like, no. And along with that, we have Venomoth. As long as this card is active, your opponent may not activate any Animo in the same turn that they're added to or grown in their small group. This one is really good to slow down quite a few decks. And then moving on to our Megas, we have our Lurakai Mega here, which I can select an Animo from my opponent's small group and flip it over. As long as this Cine is active, the Animo may not be interacted with in any way, which is really fantastic if they've got a card that they're using and abusing in their small group. It's like, no. Scorch Mega, he doesn't have any abilities or actions, but he is simply big. I have thought about changing him out, but I still really just like him, so he's still in here for the moment. And then finally, I have a Fearcrow Mega Plus. Your opponent may not play any cards from their hand on their next turn. He is big, and he is really, really, really helpful in helping me, again, control my opponent, so I get the chance to at least give this deck a good fighting chance. So that is the Sadie 1-cost deck. And again, this one represents all of the color types, at least thus far. So that was the idea, was to have a 1-cost deck. It ended up accomplishing more than one goal that we'd had, so it has stayed. We've upgraded it a few times over the past few months with some releases, but other than that, it's pretty much stayed the same since I built it whenever it was that I built it. So yeah, in the meantime, Truth Seekers, keep learning virtues and defeating Cines.